Okay, Bava Batra Daf Yuda Amud Aleph. So I think we've been doing this shiur now for several years. This is the most Inyane Diyoma it's ever been. In other words, the topic just happened to fall out very much about Aseret Yimei Tshuva, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, this particular sugya. Huh? Really?
No, I'm saying if you look at the recording for almost the past few months, it always comes to Giyus Chalidim.
Well, somehow it always gets brought back to that.
It's like the Cato from the Roman Republic, where he always used to end his speeches in the Roman Senate in, therefore I demand that Carthage will be razed. No matter what the topic was. So yeah, it's the same idea.
Okay. Good. So this week we're going to be learning a story in Bava Batra that has a parallel or a very similar story in the Midrash in Vayikra Rabbah. And first we'll try to understand what the differences between the stories are. And then we'll see Rashi has a way of interpreting the story that troubles some of the later Mefarshim. And then at the end, want to kind of suggest a read of why I think the Maharsha's take on Rashi doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And offer a bit of a different pshat. And hopefully at the end it'll also have some Inyan Diyoma, like I said. Okay? So the Gemara starts as follows. Bava Batra Yuda Amud Aleph. Remember, we're dealing with tzedakah, right? We finished the 3 teachings of Rabbi Elazar, and now there's a few more we'll be doing tzedakah before moving on to and later in the parak of Bava Batra, which is all about Tanakh and the composition of Tanakh and things like that. So Darash Rabbi Yehuda bar Rabbi Shalom, כשם שבזונותיו של אדם קצובים לו מראש השנה, כך חסרונותיו של אדם קצובים לו מראש השנה. So just as a person's sustenance is decreed and set already from Rosh Hashanah for the coming year, how much he'll have, so too chesronotav are set from Rosh Hashanah. In other words, already it's been decreed for us the losses that will accrue over the course of the year for each of us.
That means how much you will lose?
Yeah.
Or how much you won't make? Expenses.
כמה האוטו ידפק, כמה יעלה בטק.
צריך להגיד כמה לא נרוויח, כי זה...
We'll see perhaps we'll see shortly what it means, okay? Or at least one way to understand what it means. Okay, and this teaching just finishes, Zachar, alo paros lachmecha, that's a pasuk we've seen in the past, which means shouldn't you spread your bread out for the poor? In other words, if you're zocheh, this chetzronot, the money that you've lost, will be spent on tzedakah. You'll give that money that's been kind of allocated in Shemaim to not belong to you. You'll give it to others from your own, goodness of your heart. Lo zacha, but if not, vanim rudim tavi bayit, which means someone will come take it from you. Right? We learned like the government will come and take it, or in some fashion. For example, kihad bnei achte de Rabbi Yohanan Ben Zakkai. So the sons of the sister of Rabbi Yohanan Ben Zakkai, okay, so his nephews, chazal lehu בחילמא דבעו למיחסר 700 dinari. So Rabbi Yohanan Ben Zakkai saw in a dream that his nephews were going to lose 700 dinar, okay, which is a large sum of money. So what did he do? Asinhu shakal minay litzedakah. So he made them or forced them to give that money to tzedakah. Okay? Pash gabayu shivsar dinare. Okay? How much was left? 17 dinars. In other words, they had 700. Rabbi Yochanan Ben Zakkai said to them, give your money to tzedakah. And they gave, how much? If there's 17 left? 683 dinar. And 17 were left over. Kimata male yamad et kippur. Okay, then Erev Yom Kippur came along the end of that year. Shadur de bekeso naktinu, and from the emperor's house, they came and they took 17 dinar from these nephews by force. Amalu Rabbi Yohanan Ben Zakkai, lo tichdalun. So Rabbi Yochanan Ben Zakkai said to his nephews, don't be worried that that something bad is about to happen. Shivsar dinar gabaychu shakilnu minachu. They're only going to take 17 dinar. They're not going to take more. How did he know? So Amrule menayadata. How do you know?
They didn't have it.
What? They had a lot more money than that, but
They came to collect some money.
They didn't weigh 700, they had 17 left.
Rabbi Yochanan Ben Zakkai saw in a dream that they were going to lose 700 dinar that year. They gave away 683 to tzedakah. Okay, and then the government came and took 17. So they had more money, so they're worried that something worse is going to happen to them. Rabbi Yohanan Ben Zakkai said, don't worry about it. This is it. You're good. So they said, how do you know? So Amalu, he said, what do you mean? I saw it in a dream. I saw in a dream you're only going to lose 700. And so this is the end of that amount they're going to lose. So Amruleh, what did they say back to him? If you had told us we were going to lose 700 dinar, what would we have done?
All of it for tzedakah.
We would have given all of it. We wouldn't have. You came and said, give money to tzedakah. You didn't really explain why, so we gave 683. But we would have happily preferred to give the last 17 also to tzedakah instead of to the government, right? So Amalu, what did Rabbi Yohanan Ben Zakkai answer them? Amina ki hechi de te'avdu mitzvah lishma. Because I wanted it to be done, lishma. If you knew that it was because I had a dream about it, then it wouldn't have been done with the same, kavanah. And so I preferred it to be done this way. Okay, so that's the story in Bava Batra Yud Amud Aleph. There's lots of questions, and we'll ask some of them. But before we kind of open it up to kind of understand the questions, I want to look at a parallel version of this midrash in Vayikra Rabbah. Okay, Perek Lamed Daled. And keep in mind what the differences are, because we'll go through the differences after. Okay, some of them are quite easy to spot, as you'll see right away. Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, Kad damichle belele reish shata chama bechelme bnei achte mitva'in min malchuta shit mea dinarim. Okay, so Rashbi was sleeping the night of Rosh Hashanah, and he had a dream, and in his dream, his nephews had to give 600 dinar to the government. Okay? Ansinan okminan parnasin. So he forced them to become the parnasin, in charge of the tzedakah, of the charity. So Amruleh, they said to him, Man dama mefakta. So they said to him, I'm not exactly sure what this means, but where's the money supposed to come from? In other words, if we're collecting money, but there's a certain amount to raise, where's the extra supposed to come from? I think is what it means. So Amrullah, he said to them, Atun mifken v'katvin. So you give whatever amount needs to be filled in, and write it down in a ledger. Keep a record of the amount that you've contributed to the fund. B'seifa deshata, and at the end of the year, in mitavdin ana ashalem lechon. If there's any amount that's still left over, so I'll pay you guys back. Okay, that's what he said to his nephews. Okay, b'sofa deshat, at the end of the year, itamrin alaychu leshon bish. At the end of the year, lashon hara was said about these nephews. Kad havu yatvin v'nisvin bahadin mitachsa. Okay, and the Mefarshim and the Midrash should try to understand what exactly this means, but we'll go with kind of what I saw the consensus was, which is, that at the end of the year, that the Rashbi's nephews, they dealt in silk, and making silk garments. That was their profession. And someone said something based on the business that they were doing. Someone said some lashon hara to the government about the business dealings that they were making. So when they were coming and making silk, Atachad Gvar Malchuta, someone from the government came to them, and Amar Lahu, he said to them, O atun avdin purpira demalka, o atun me'amarin shit me'adinarin. Either make a purpira, which is like a fancy, royal garment cloak made out of silk for the king, or I'm going to take 600 dinarin from you. Okay, so this happens at the end of the year. V'savetunun v'chavoshtinun b'salke. And then this man took them and threw them in prison. Okay? Kevan, the Shama of Shum Ben Chai. So Shum Ben Chai heard that his nephews had been taken and thrown into prison. Azil Gabay, and he went to prison. And he said, Uma afikton. So he said to them, how much money did you guys give throughout the course of the year to the fund, right, that I appointed you over? So Amar Lo'on, Akatva, go check the ledger. Like you asked, we wrote down every amount, and we kept a record of it. So Shadi Kari had the katava. So when he saw the ledger, V'ashkach dafkan shit me'a dinarin, chaser shit dinarin. They gave 600, except for 6. So they gave 594. Okay? So Amalon, he said to his nephews, Havuli shit dinarin, give me 6. V'ana mafka lachon, and I'll get you out of here. I'll get you out of jail. So Amruleh, they said to him, Atun chamun lahu saba, matva minhon shid me'a dinarin, v'ada amar shid dinarin, v'ana mafka lachon. They said, the government came and told us they want 600 dinars from us. So you think we can give you 6, you're going to get us out of here? Like, how are you going to pull that off? Right? So Amruleh, so he said to them, Havuli shita dinar, give me 6, v'chpad lachon atun, and don't worry about it, I'll deal with it. That's what he said to them. Yahivin le'shita dinarin. So they gave him 6 dinars. Begav kimse, which I think means like in a clenched fist, which the Mefarshim said means like secretly. There's like not a very kind of they snuck it to him. I guess.
Not reluctantly. That's not what it means.
Maybe that's what it means. I think the Mefarshim I saw, it says it means, whatever. They're in the jail cell and they figured it out. Oh, that might make more sense. I don't know. Maybe one of the Mefarshim said that. Could be they gave it reluctantly. So he went, he bribed the warden, and the warden let them out for 69. Yeah. Because the warden doesn't care that they're going to give 600 to the government, right? So the warden says, give me 6, and I'll let you guys go. So that's how he got them out. So afterwards they came out and they asked Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, sorry, I skipped the line. So they said to Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, how'd you know that with 6 dinar you'd be able to bribe the warden and get us out? So so what did he say to them? On your lives, so he doesn't say, I saw it in a dream. He just says, I knew from the beginning of the year that you were going to lose 600. And then when I went, I looked at the ledger. I saw you'd given 594. I knew there were still 6 that you had to give up. So they said to him, so what did they say back? Similar to what they said back in Bava Batra. Like, why don't you just tell us that that's what was going on, and we would have just given it happily for the sake of the mitzvah of tzedakah instead of to the government. So Amar Lu, he said to them, so he gives the same answer as in Bava Batra, but he adds another explanation. Amar lo havyan mehamenan yate. So he says, if I'd said that, you wouldn't have believed me. If I'd said in the beginning of the year, you're going to lose 600 dinar, give it all to tzedakah, you would have just said no. And furthermore, I wanted you to give it so that it would be a mitzvah lishma, and if I told you it wouldn't be a mitzvah lishma. Okay? So just quickly, just to summarize, what are the main differences between these two versions of the story? Okay, fine. Good. So first of all, fair enough. You could say these are two separate incidents that just have a lot of similarities between them that happen to different people with different details. You could say that. Fair enough. I'll even go with you on that. Given that, what are the differences between the stories?
The person.
Okay, good. So that's what we're going to do. Yeah, fair. We're going to dwell on that. Good. Very good. That's a good thing to pick up on.
Just say, get it me. Just said, oh.
The amount of money is different.
No,
it's how about the attitude towards the malchut?
No, you're right, but the opposite. No, you're right, but it says that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai had a dream Rosh Hashanah night. It doesn't say when Rabbi Yohanan Ben Zakkai had his dream in Bava Batra. That's going to be important. So that's a good ha'ara. The amounts of the money obviously are different. Both the initial amount and the amount that was given and left over. Yeah.
And the details.
The attitude towards the malchut.
Yeah, okay, how so?
Think about it. Rabbi Yohanan Ben Zakkai, we all know the story. Yavne v'chachamea. And the whole concept of him, getting from him appealing to.
Because Rabbi Yohanan Ben Zakkai was more friendly towards the government than Rashbi.
And Rashbi, we all know he was one of the 5 students remaining from Rabbi Akiva, and
he didn't care, yeah.
And his attitude, and when he sat with Rabbi Yosei and Rabbi Yehuda. And each of them had to comment what do they like about the deeds of Rome,
right?
And so, in other words, where does this money that you pay the malchut go to? Is it to latkin ksharim or whatever for their own purposes, or is it, Mm-hmm. So the attitude towards Rome is also part of the deal.
That's good.
And the first one, related to that potentially, the first one, the money ends up going to the Memshala. And the second one doesn't end up going there. It ends up going
to some warden.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good. I hadn't thought of that. Sure?
בראשון הם יקשו רק את ההפרש.
כן.
נכון.
שנים ברשו את כל השישות, למרות שכבר...
יפה.
If you didn't do it all...
ואז רק אחר כך בדיעבד גילו שכבר נתנו את רובו.
וגם הלשון הבא שהשתמשו זה שהביאו 600 חסר, ושם הביאו, כאילו נשאר להם 17.
נכון. יפה. Okay, good. Okay. Excellent. Good. So those were all good ha'arot. Okay. So first I want to deal with a kind of a specific question and then kind of tie what Kobe asked about Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah is where I want to focus. So the first thing that nobody seemed to raise an eyebrow at, but maybe we should have, is that it said in both stories that the respective rabbi forced his nephews to give tzedakah. Now, is that a thing that we do?
He said at the end he wanted to be Ishmael, so it implies that it was.
Yeah, but would you ever go to your nephew and tell him you should do a tzedakah?
Okay, good. So the Ian Yaakov's going to say that. Yeah, excellent.
Send them a cause match campaign.
But you're right, you want me to come into the Ian
Well,
Yaakov,
we
right?
do have the whole idea of Beitin Kofin and Tzedakah. There is a thing.
Okay, good.
It is-
Yep.
But that's not Lashma.
Okay, so first of all, good.
Beat him until he wanted it. He wanted it to stop.
It always goes back to the
Okay.
okay. So look at what the Maharsha says in his comments on Bava Batra. So he says right when Rabbi Yohanan Ben Zakkai says Vasinhu, right, when he made them give the money. So the Maharsha says Deka'amar lav b'kfiya el b'dvarim. So it doesn't mean that he forced his nephews to give it. It means that he, strongly encouraged them with
When
words.
your uncle is Rabbi Shimon Ben Yochai and he says, I think you should, you do.
Right. Rabbi Yohanan Ben Zakkai. Right. But the point is he's not forcing them to give. And in the version of Vayikra Rabba, the Matnot Kuna, which is a commentary there, he makes a similar argument. Because there it uses the word ansenan, right, from anus, which is literally forced. So he says, anasotam Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai ve'kimotam gabei tzedakah v'ulai shetzarich lomar nesivon perish lakach otam. In other words, he suggests maybe you shouldn't use such a harsh word to describe what Rashbi did to his nephews. It should be that he did it in a gentler way. But as you guys said about tzedakah, so let's look now at the Gemara in Bava Batra and Daf Chedamud Bet, which is one daf or daf and a half before this Gemara. So it's talking about, does Beit Din have the authority to collect tzedakah? Right? Because we think of tzedakah, right? Charity is not really, it's a misnomer. It's not a good translation. Because charity is voluntary. Tzedakah is a mitzvah. It's an obligation in some sense. How much? Right. So the halacha says, a third of a shekel or half a shekel. It's a very little amount that you have to. But the idea of tzedakah is seen more of a... So is there authority to Beit Din to come take tzedakah? So the Gemara says, in the discussion of these gaba'it tzedakah, the people who were appointed to collect tzedakah, so it says, Mai Sharuta, what authority did these tzedakah collectors have? That they had the authority to go around Erev Shabbat when everyone's busy with the soup and the chon and all this stuff, to go and say, give the tzedakah that you have to give, to the point that they could take collateral forcefully from people who didn't have the money to give them at that moment. Okay, so that's quite an authority. And the Gemara says, Yini, is that really true? V'haktiv, doesn't the pasuk say ufakadeti al kol hachatzav? V'amar b'yitzchak bar Shmuel bar Marta mishmei derav v'afil gabei tzedakah. That the context there is Hashem saying, I will get angry and I will take vengeance against the lochatzim, the ones who oppress. And the drasha is the ones who oppress are the gabei tzedakah. So doesn't that teach me that people who take tzedakah forcefully from others are considered oppressors? That's not exactly a positive thing. So what does the Gemara say? Lo kashya had amid had lo amid. What does that mean? Amid is what? Rich. So which is which? Just intuitively.
You could Erev Shabbat from the rich.
Right. You can take from the rich. And the Gemara says, how do I know this? Ki had Rava the achfei Rav Natan bar Ami v'shakil minei 400 zuzei tzedakah. That one time Rava took 400 zuz from Rav Natan bar Ami for tzedakah. Okay, so that shows that that's a lot of money. That shows that I'm allowed to take that. Rav is a test case. Okay, so we see here an example of taking money forcefully by tzedakah.
Rav Natan bar Ami was wealthy, I'm assuming, in this.
That's the clear implication of this, right? Yeah. So good. So what I want to suggest is, so first of all, I have to look this up just to validate. A zuz and a dinar are identical, okay, in terms of the currency. It's the same. It's two words for the same thing. So what does this then? How can this reflect on the question that we've raised now?
Maybe only
if, based on this logic, you assume Rav Natan bar Ami was wealthy and Rava took 400 zuz from him for tzedakah, and that by definition is considered acceptable because it's an amount, he was wealthy, so that's a large amount of money. So it's reasonable based on that, I think, to say that if you're dealing with 700 dinar or 600 dinar, both of those are more than 400, that you can kind of, in other words, Marasham Matnot Kuna are going like this to say, he didn't force them to give. He did it with words. He did it like But it could be that they had a lot. They clearly had a lot of money. They had more. People have taken forcefully less money than what was being taken from them in this instance. Is the point that I'm trying to make, right? Mm-hmm. Based on this Gemara, if zuz and dinar are identical, so you could try to argue that maybe I don't have to work so hard in order to kind of argue away that he took it forcefully. But the truth is that maybe Marasham Matnot Kuna are being motivated by something else. And this alludes to what Shimon said. If we look at the Iyun Yaakov, he makes a very strong argument now why what I just said is not correct. So if you look at the... I never learn, Shimon. I never learn. It's the craziest thing.
When you do the word, is it like not? Is it like?
Because I want to save a page.
Fine, save a page. Perfect.
Okay. So where it says Asinhu on the right side of the Iyun Yaakov, okay, it says Kashem in big letters, and then you go down 2 lines, it says Asinhu. V'shakal minaychu tzedakah. Can you guys see that?
Yeah.
Just nod and say it. Just say yes. Please. We can zoom it in.
We cut down on the chips, maybe you can print another paper.
Okay, we should get a budget for more ink. That's all we need. So that's al cheshbonim. Okay. Okay. So what does it mean that Rabbi Yohanan Ben Zakkai made them give tzedakah, his nephews? Pi Rashi kol hashana haya kofan bidvarim. So Rashi says, like the Maharsha said, it means that with words he got them to give. Okay. V'gava mehem tzedakah. And then the Iyun Yaakov says the following. V'ha depiresh Rashi kan v'ika lememar dedad Rashi v'leika lememar dedad Rashi kedad Tosfot deleel b'shem Rabbi Yitzchak. And it can't be that when Rashi says here b'dvarim that he agrees with Tosfot, where Tosfot says on the Gemara that we just learned. What does Tosfot say? The chol mitzvah taseh shematan tzchar b'tzida ein beitin shel matan nisharin alea. There's a principle in the Gemara in Chulin, actually, that if there's a mitzvah that says shematan schar b'tzidah, that if the Torah says there's a mitzvah, positive mitzvah, and explicitly gives the reward for that mitzvah, that Beit Din doesn't have the authority to force someone to fulfill that mitzvah. That's a principle that's given in the Gemara. It does not. Okay, there it's in the context of Shiluch HaKen, I think, because the mitzvah there is you're going to have a long life. So Tosfot asks. So Tosfot says, how could Rava here have forced Rav Natan Bar Ami, even if he was rich, have forced him to give tzedakah? Isn't tzedakah a positive mitzvah? Patoch tiftach leman yivarechecha Hashem Elokecha b'chol mishlach yadecha. It's a mitzvah to say shematan tzchira b'tzida, and Beit Din doesn't have the authority to force anyone to do a mitzvah to say shematan. So how could Rava force Rav Natan? So the first opinion in Tosfot, the first answer is that he did it b'dvarim. When it says that he didn't literally coerce him, he encouraged him. And so it's not a violation of that principle. That's the first opinion of Tosfot. So now the Iyun Yaakov says, Tosfot feels comfortable over here, based on that question, to explain away when Rava forced Rav Natan Bar Ami to give, that it wasn't really coercion. And here in our Gemara, Rashi makes a similar argument. Rabbi Yochanan Ben Zakkai didn't really force his nephews, he kind of convinced them. So then Yaakov says, based on that, it must be that Rashi doesn't agree with Tosfot over there, because Rashi doesn't say that back there. Tosfot says that back there. And if Rashi says it here, and not there, that means he didn't think it over there, even though Tosfot did. That's what the Iyun Yaakov argues, first of all. Does that make sense? Okay. But then he continues and says the following. De'im ken, havalei Rashi lefarish ken le'el. Al had achei Rava, k'mo shepirushu Tosfot sham. And then he says, but now I have a different problem. Why would Rashi explain the coercion here by Rabbi Yochanan Ben Zakkai is with words, but not explain in the Gemara one daf earlier that Rava forcing Rav Natan Bar Ami with words? Now, what's the difference between the scenarios that here he's so uncomfortable interpreting it that he forced his nephews, whereas there he's okay saying Rava actually forced Rav Natan Bar Ami? So then Yaakov gives a few reasons why to differentiate between the cases. So he says, number one, Bishvil, so he says, near the Rashi, Hutzach lefarish kan. So here he says Rashi has to explain that it's with words and not a coercion. Why? Chada, number one, the Bishvil chalom lo ya kofan mamish, The divrei chalamot lo ma'alin v'lo moridin ela b'dvarim ba'alma. So, Mela Rava, because there was some amount that Rav Natan Bar Ami had to give, you have some amount of tzedakah that you're able to take, so he took because he had to take the tzedakah. But here, just because Rabbi Yohanan Ben Zakkai had a dream that they're going to lose a certain amount of money, that gives him the halachic and legal authority to take the money from them by force? Surely not. So that made Rashi uncomfortable here in a way that he wasn't uncomfortable earlier. What's another reason why to differentiate between them? If he had forced them to give, that's what Shimon said. Because at the end of the story, they asked him, we would have given all the money if you had just told us. And he said, but I wanted you to give it mitzvah lishma. But if he forced them to give it, how is it mitzvah lishma? Right? The end of the story proves that it wasn't a forced giving. It was rather, a convincing. As the end of the story says. And you don't have that by Rav Natan Bar Ami. It just says, Rava forced Rav Natan Bar Ami to give.
Is there a chance that when he's saying about lishma, he means that it wouldn't have worked? Meaning, it's like they had to lose this money, right? If he said to them, you need to lose 700, give it away now. It wouldn't count.
Oh.
Like he's saying, his lishma had to be like, we're giving up this money.
I didn't understand that way. Interesting.
Cheat the system.
I understood it, meaning the mitzvah will have more schar.
I just like
But,
The money within the eternal circulation.
it's like a whole time travel thing. It's like it doesn't. No, me too. That's what made me think of it. I was like,
I think though haven't we learned that even if someone gives tzedakah for the wrong reasons or because it's taken from them, it's still considered tzedakah. In other words, it's still money that you lost.
it's just interesting. Like if his thumb was just like being that they should like have good schar for the thing,
or he was worried that it wouldn't work.
Right.
Interesting. I hadn't thought of that. Very good.
No, but we didn't talk about the tzedakah itself. And then when we talked about the masa itself as a tzedakah, you give tzedakah, it doesn't matter if you took the money and bought drugs with it. We don't care about that. We're talking about, as Shimon said, they needed to lose 700.
Right. So if they needed to lose, who cares if they knew, you're saying?
So I'm saying maybe they need to lose it in order that tzedakah, specifically.
Right.
Actually lose it.
No, of course. Which is why at the end, when the government takes the last 17, that fulfills that. Yeah.
I think the attitude is part of the deal here. So at the end of the day, you're saying, okay, how about we just keep the money within the circulation, internal circulation, as opposed to it going to Rome as an external government that doesn't have our interests at heart.
Right. Yeah.
right.
Okay, good. Let's continue. Let's just finish this Yun Yaakov. He gives two more reasons why Rashi is uncomfortable here. Okay, so he says, "V'tu." Furthermore, im kafa mamash, lama lo kafa gam ken litein shivisra dinari. Right. Also, if he forced them, and he was trying to, and he had the dream that they had to give 700, so why would he force them to give 683? Right? Isn't that a good argument to say it must have been not actual coercion?
He would have forced them.
He would have forced them to give the whole thing. So it's clear.
They don't believe him.
What?
Is there a chance that they don't believe it? Meaning he says, you have to do 700 this year, so give it away. And they give it away, and there's no proof.
No, I mean he could have forced them. If he forced them, he could have forced them to give 700 without explaining why.
I understand, but
If that's what it
They
means.
would have known if it was true or not. This way,
They wouldn't believe his dream.
This way,
They wouldn't believe his dream.
Yeah, like.
But here,
are
they
you
still
following what I'm
proving
saying?
Oh,
They would
this is like it's like Inception. This is very meta. This is very. This is okay.
But it only
And
proved
didn't
17
necessarily
very
specify
Right.
something to them.
There is an idea that kol hachalamot olchot achar pitaron, right? That dreams follow the interpretation. In other words, like with Yosef, right? This is a famous idea, right? Yosef did his dreams come true that the brothers bowed down to him? Yes, but is that because it would have come true no matter what somehow, or because he made it come true, right? It's always the question of, so, okay, very good. I guess you can apply that same chakira to this, אלא ועדת שבדברים בעלמא כפה, לכן הוא היה יכול לכפות עד גמר לצדקה. וקצקה שדאיך שהכל מנח לצדקה והוציא מהמון בשביל החלום. Okay, it's fine. Okay, so that's what the Yun Yaakov argues, why Rashi interprets this to mean B'tvarim. Okay, so that was just kind of an interesting pilpul that I wanted to discuss. Now for the main point of the shiur, is what Kobe mentioned in the beginning, that one of the main differences here, and again, this is the Inyan Diyoma piece, is that we're not told when Rabbi Yohanan Ben Zakkai had his dream. It just says he had a dream, and that there were 700 dinars left, and then the following, or the next, Erev Yom Kippur, the government came and took the last 17. Okay? Now, what does that imply? When is the end of the period through which Gzera...
סוכות.
No, it's not.
סוף השנה זה סוכות. אז זה בסדר.
That was one of the options. It was just something about.
You're saying it should be Rosh Hashanah.
Hanukkah. The Hasidim say Hanukkah is the last. The ink is not dry till Hanukkah.
No, the sentence there.
It's not true. That's why Hashanah Rabbah.
Hashanah Rabbah.
Yeah, that's like the last chance.
Oh,
The
man.
last
Okay,
chance.
we are.
סוף השנה זה Hashanah Rabbah.
Ink is not dry until Hanukkah.
Okay. The answer I was looking for was
יום כיפור.
Yom Kippur. Okay? Right? Chatima.
You knew and you still
Right?
making
Yom Kippur. Utshuva, Tefillah, Tzedakah, Mavinu Gzera is Uchtom, Chaim Kudim, Kol Bnei Brit Techa, right? And that would make sense with this saying that Erev Yom Kippur, the government came and took the last 17 because that was the end of the period by which that decree from the period. Okay?
But also
but what?
they get the chance to like give it away naturally. Like they wait until the last second. It wasn't that it happened during the year. It was like right before you give it. They're like, oh, you didn't give away the 700.
Right. Which is the teaching before, right? If you are Zocha, you give it in charity. If not, the government's going to come take it. Mamash at the end. Right, exactly.
Surplus at the end of the.
But what is that a bit difficult? That statement, it's a bit difficult, I would argue, in two senses. Okay, well, before I say what's difficult about it, let's see what Rashi says. So look at Rashi. So Rashi says, sorry? Rashi in his parish, so he says Chazalu b'chalma. This is on the Gemara Bava Batra, right? Remember in Vayikra Rabbah it says that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai saw the dream on Rosh Hashanah. Rashi says, when did Rabbi Yohanan Ben Zakkai have the dream? The Motzei Yom Kippurim, after Yom Kippur. Now, why does Rashi say that? So the truth is, I brought this whole Maharsha here, which we're not going to read inside in the interest of time. The Maharsha says, because, right, if at the end, I see right before Yom Kippur is when the Gzerah finishes, that means that the dream, the Gzerah started like after Yom Kippur the previous year. Now, as you had the dream, Motzei Yom Kippur, that in this year, you're going to lose 700 dinar, and then that finished at the following Yom Kippur, and that's why out of Yom Kippur they came to claim it. So that seems to be what's motivating Rashi, and it makes sense, right? But then if you look, Pash Gabayhu, Rashi says, Erev Rosh Hashanah, Shivsar Dinari, Delonitnu L'Tzedakah, Mishva Mea Dinari. In other words, at Erev Rosh Hashanah, Rashi says, there were 17 dinars left. Erev Yom Kippur, the government came and took those last 17 dinar. Okay? And what's a little bit difficult is why would Rashi insist on interpreting there were 17 dinar left as having been Erev Rosh Hashanah if the Gemara says explicitly that Erev Yom Kippur is when the government came and took those 17 dinar. Right? Now, if Rashi says the year begins Yom Kippur, because that's when the dream happened, and the year ends Yom Kippur, because that's when they came and took it all, so what's the significance of interpreting there were 17 dinar left as being a declaration of the state as of Rosh Hashanah in the second year?
It's the Gemara of the Din, it's not the Gemara at the end of the year. So
Okay.
By Yom Kippur, it was signed that they would need to give the 700, but they had till the end of the year to lose that money. The year essentially ends Rosh Hashanah, just that the decrees happen, are signed Yom Kippur. That's why he could only know about it after Yom Kippur.
I think
But then when they came and took it, Erev Yom Kippur, isn't that after the din is over of Rosh Hashanah? If it's from Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah, the din is over Rosh Hashanah. But they came and took the last 17.
I think
Erev Yom Kippur, which is 9 days
the
later.
reason is because
It doesn't matter when they would take it.
Well, the Gzeraz is over for that year.
Should have happened
Right.
within
No,
that
the
year.
האופציה שגרמו של הגזרות זה סוף החיים פתאום משלם מלא כסף בבת אחת על כל ה-120
Because
שנה.
they didn't get. Okay.
זה לא
No,
משנה.
I see the gap.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm
No,
saying maybe the reason that just his nephews were pretty disappointed because they want to give the 17 dinarim to tzedakah, and then, oh no, the government came and they took it. And he also thought about it, and maybe he prayed for the Yom Kippur, and then in his dream, he got the answer, don't worry about it, it still comes with tzedakah.
That he had another dream?
I'm saying, in the dream that he had on Yom Kippur, that he says, so maybe then, in the dream, they needed to lose it. It's not like the government came and they did something wrong. They needed to lose it because that was the Gzerah from the beginning of the year.
Okay.
Or for just a more practical idea, is from Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah is where if you like, the internal tax is when they come to collect for that, and they know, okay, if we don't take the money, the government's coming a little later, and they will take it. So
Okay, good. So
we'd rather keep the money within the internal circulation and say, okay, fine, this is local tax.
okay, good. So I think the answer I'm going to try to give at the end is similar to that. And by the end, I mean I guess right now. Even though I would want to read these inside, but just if we look at the Maharsha, one line in the Maharsha, where the Maharsha is right above where it says Harif. Okay, there's a line that begins Lehavi. You see that in the parish of the Maharsha. Okay, so it says Ulefi ze nira lehagia b'pi Rashi pashka bayu erev Yom Kippur shemaser dinari. So the Maharsha is so bothered by the question that we asked that he says it's actually a ta'ut sofer when Rashi says in his parish on pashka bayu, when was there 17 dinar left? So he says, because Rashi says that the dream was Erev Yom Kippur, it must be that when Rashi says Pashka Bayu, it means Erev Yom Kippur as well, the following year. The following year, there were 17 left, Erev Yom Kippur, and then the government came and took it. It doesn't make sense for the Rashi, who says the dream was Yom Kippur, Motzei Yom Kippur, to say that they had 17 left, Rosh Hashanah, and the government came and took it Erev Yom Kippur. That's what the Maharsha tries to argue, okay? The Iyun Yaakov, which again, we're not going to read inside now, but I'll say it outside quickly, he gives a different reason why Rashi insists on Yom Kippur entirely. His explanation is there's a Gemara that says, do we trust dreams, yes or no? Are dreams really yes or no? And he says, some dreams yes, some dreams no. And the Gemara says, how do I know? That the dreams I should trust are from an angel, and the dreams that I shouldn't trust are from a demon. Okay, that's the Gemara in Brachot. So the Iyun Yaakov says, why does Rashi insist that the dream is brilliant? Why does Rashi insist that Rabbi Yohanan Ben Zakkai must have the dream Motzei Yom Kippur? Because all of his avonot had been wiped on Yom Kippur, and he spent the whole day like an angel and white, so he knew the dream was from an angel and that he could trust it. So that's a good cham, okay? So that's...
Isn't the idea that
So if you dream
that's the
about the
only
numbers
day
of
that Satan
doesn't have pattern, right? In other words, it's the reason, exactly. The Iyun Yaakov says, Rashi insists it's Yom Kippur, to show why Rabbi Yohanan Ben Zakkai was able to trust the dream. Okay? So now, first of all, the Iyun Yaakov's explanation doesn't work at all with the version of Vayikra Rabbah, right? Because it says there that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai had a dream at Reish Shata, which is Rosh Hashanah.
But he was a tzaddik.
Yes, so I could say what?
He was a super tzaddik.
Fine, but I could say that then about Rabbi Yohanan Ben
Wait, what's
Zakkai.
Shata? How do you translate Shata?
Year, Rosh Hashanah in Aramaic.
Yeah, but
So you could say it means Yom Kippur. But
exactly, because you said Rosh Hashanah it's actual.
okay.
Tishrei season.
All right, you could say it means Yom Kippur. I think Shad is that he had Rosh Hashanah.
Think about it, after Erev, Kol HaSlichot. It's fine.
So okay,
you also guaranteed the money back to them in the second case. So
Right.
it's like, even if you don't trust the dream, like, fine, I'll pay it.
I'll pay it back. Yeah, that's fair. That's true. But I still think that Iyun Yaakov's answer only works in the context of the version of Bava Batra. But there's another problem I have with Rashi, which is that if we go back to Bava Batra, we learn two different things. We learned the story with Rabbi Yohanan Ben Zakkai, but it came after a teaching. What was the teaching? Kashem shemazonotav shel adam ktsuvin lo merosh Hashanah, kach chesonotav shel adam ktsuvin lo merosh Hashanah. How do I know this? Ki had b'nei achted Rabbi Yohanan Ben Zakkai. Now, if he had the dream on Yom Kippur, and they came and took the money on Yom Kippur the following year, how is that a proof that chesonotav shel adam ktsuvin lo merosh Hashanah? So, wouldn't it make more sense for the dream to have happened on Rosh Hashanah?
No, the dream happened Yom Kippur, and the whole year later, before that year was over, they took the money.
On Rosh Hashanah?
Yeah.
Oh, so good. So I want to argue that the Maharsha, when he says, Rashi makes two statements here, right? That the dream was Motzei Yom Kippur, and there were 17 left, Erev Rosh Hashanah. And the Maharsha says, it's a bad girsa when he says 17 left, Erev Rosh Hashanah. It means Erev Yom Kippur. I want to say, biduk afuch, that no, there was 17 left Rosh Hashanah, and that makes sense because we just learned that chesonotav shel adam ktsuvin lo merosh Hashanah, but that the chazal hu bechama b'motzei Yom Kippurim, maybe I don't have to insist on that. It could be that the dream was after Rosh Hashanah, or it could be any other day of the year. That's not really what's important. And when Rashi says motzei Yom Kippurim, there's no real reason for him to insist on that. Versus the Pashka Bayu being Erev Rosh Hashanah makes more sense with the fact that we're teaching in the context of chesonotav shel adam ktsuvin lo Rosh Hashanah, and also that in Vayikra Rabbah, the parallel story, he has the dream on Rosh Hashanah. So to me, I would say, just like Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai had the dream on Rosh Hashanah, that maybe the Girson Rashi of Chazlu L'Chama should be b'Motzei Rosh Hashanah, and then you keep the Rosh Hashanah, the exact opposite of what Marashah suggests. Just to conclude, we asked what's the significance of the money, of the amounts. 700, 583. So you have to throw in a good gematria. So the Ben Yoyada at the end, so he says, Nirali b'siyat d'shmai d'chavana asa l'she'er mispar tov. Right? 17 is tov. V'od yoter tov. That there were 17 dinar left at the end of the year. Lirmoz lahem, to hint to them, achar kach, dal yitzdaru mispar shenatnu le'umot. You had to give 17 dinar to the umos. Tov, don't worry about it. It's fine. That's all you're going to have to give because you gave so much tzedakah. Ukmo she'amru la'el ha'pasuk v'nuksayit tzedakah v'nimsa shu lakach mehem tzedakah gmura sach. How much did he take? 683. Now the Ben Yehuda says, Keminyan sharei mazon. The gates of sustenance. The fact they gave the money, right? The fact that they gave the money, it gave them sustenance for the year because they gave their money to tzedakah. So I went and I said, well, that might work here in Bava Batra, but what about in Vaikarabba? How much did they give and how much was left? So if you remember, they gave 594 and there was 6 left. So there's nothing that has a gematria of 6 that's particularly interesting that I was able to find, right? Agav.
Oh.
Agav, okay. But 594, there's 2 psukim. There's Hashem chafetz l'man tzidko, that phrase, and Sham yizbechu zivchei tzedek. There's 2 phrases that talk about...
How do you figure this out?
I looked it up. Online. There's a what? There's a what here. There's a what?
He counted it and then looked through his phone.
There's a book.
Every post.
No.
He went to the Sfaradi shul.
Okay? Hashem chafetz l'man tzidko, but it's like it's gishmak, right? Because Hashem, He desires the acts of l'man tzidko, of His tzedakah. It's a drush of His tzedakah. That explains why they gave 594. Hashem chafetz l'man tzidko. Also, Sham yizbechu zivchei tzedek. They sacrificed there this zivchei tzedek of tzedakah. They sacrificed 594, so they wouldn't have to give it to the government. Gemar chatima tova.
That could be sweet.
Okay.